It's time to start the celebration of life. So will people please quietly find your way to your seats and we will begin. Just find your way to your seats and we will begin this celebration of life on this rainy day. The candle which represents the light that always is within us and within the world. So I would like to welcome you to the first existentialist congregation of Atlanta, who will begin by a song, a congregational song. Our musicians today are C.J. Jones and the Spirit Bum. So let's welcome them. And they are going to lead us in a song, and so I ask you to stand as you're willing and able in spirit and body, and we will sing May the Circle Be Unbroken. I believe page 80, is it not?
Page 80. 89, page 89.
Page 81. 89, I'm so sorry. Page 89. Yes, how about...
Do you have a confirmation on that?
We will sing this song.
There are those who fought for freedom, gave their lives and went to jail. Let us follow in their footsteps. Let us take that freedom trail. Will the circle be unbroken? Will it stand throughout the land? Yes, we'll carry on for freedom, hand in hand, hand in hand. All the ones who fought before us, we will honor every name. But the struggle isn't over, now we all must do the same. Will the circle be unbroken? Will it stand throughout the land? Yes, we'll carry on for freedom, hand in hand, hand in hand. There are those who would divide us, who would keep us all apart, but will keep the bond between us and will give each other heart. Will the circle be unbroken?
And this band consists of Ted Pettis, Craig Refuse, who is a wonderful musician, and Andy Weisskopf. And I'd just like to tell you, Craig is also a wonderful carpenter as well as musician. He has gifted us with these wonderful handrails.
I'm not completely finished, but they're usable. You know, you can grab onto them. You won't get hurt.
Thank you so much.
So at this time, I would like to ask if they... Oh, excuse me. We are the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta, and we are dedicated to human liberation. We are a philosophically based community founded on existentialist and feminist principles. We make our home here in the old stone church, which was built by the African American congregation Antioch East. They have since moved from their location for many years on Hardy Street. But they were here, and that congregation built this building with stones from Stone Mountain after their original wooden structure had been burned down as a result, we think, of racial hostility and animosity. And this community was once a thriving African American community along this street, and they were driven out basically by gentrification in the 50s. So we also make our home on the land that once belonged to the Muscogee Creek people, who were driven in the 1800s out west and made to give up their lands here in Georgia in the Southwest. We support justice for all indigenous people. And so we now are, I'm going to ask you if there are any newcomers who would like to be recognized. Would you, if you are, would you stand or just wave and say your name and how you learned about us? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Emily, and I found out about this place by attending one of the Sunday Assembly gatherings.
Well, welcome, Emily. Any other visitors who would like to be recognized?
Do you want to speak yourself?
No, you should.
Okay. This is my mother, Patsy Cade. She's been here a few times before, but not since the pandemic. And she's visiting from Richmond for her birthday week. On Friday will be her 94th birthday.
And your name again is
Patsy Pettis.
Patsy Pettis. Yay. Are there any other visitors or newcomers or people who would like to be recognized who've been away for a while, say, or are returning? Yes.
Hi, my name's Ava. I'm Kristen's daughter, and I used to come here not super often, but a couple of times when I was in high school, and now I'm in college, but I came back for the weekend to come visit.
Welcome, Ava. And now I'd like to ask if there are any birthdays or anniversaries that people are celebrating in the past week or the upcoming week. I think Patsy might have a birthday. So if you don't want to come up, maybe you could just stay where you are and we will sing happy birthday to you.
Who's going to lead the song today?
Wait.
We will hear from Alice. Okay, folks, I am going to present you a little poem right now, which is very appropriate to the weather. It does not relate to Alice, our speaker, except that poetry relates to all poets. Alice is one. As you hear this poem, you've heard it before. Just think a little boy many years ago visiting his grandfather on a farm. He's from town, and he's watching and seeing everything because this little boy noticed everything. When icicles hang by the wall, and Dick the shepherd blows his nails, and milk comes home frozen in pails, when blood is nipped and ways be foul, then nightly sings the staring owl, doo-oo, do-it-doo, a merry note, while greasy Joan with keel hot. When all loud the wind doth blow, and coughing drowns the parson's saw, and birds sit brooding in the snow, and Marion's nose looks red and raw. When roasted crab apples hiss in the bowl, then nightly sings the staring owl, doo-doo, a merry note, while greasy Joan doth keel hot. All right. That was from a poem. That is a poem by William Shakespeare. A song, basically. Okay, folks, so now we're going to have another congregational song. What's it going to be?
Smitten and Bitten. It's in the 3-ring binder, the new book. And it's actually a song written by me. And so I said, I never imagined I'd have a song in a church hymnal, if I can call it that. I'm excited about that. This one's called Smitten and Bitten. It's about Appalachian snake handlers and a preacher who, instead of the preacher getting bitten and dying, which you read about all the time, his wives all keep getting bitten and dying. So it's kind of it's a little bit of an Appalachian love story.
It's alphabetical, by the way.
Smitten and Bitten. And alphabetical in the 3-ring binder. An S. You have the addendum, the expanded songbook.
So
The
please
Expand
stand.
Your Mind songbook.
So please stand as you're willing and able to sing Smitten and Bitten.
So, all right, here we go, y'all. So, there's a part in the chorus where I go, it ain't religion, and everybody enthusiastically goes, ain't got snakes. If it ain't got snakes. But if it ain't got snake, I don't want to see no Sunday school. Everybody's got to be saved. It ain't religion. Well, if it ain't got snake, how can I be a baby if you never ever took my place? Me and my first wife, Linda used to teach at the Sunday school. She looks sweet, but I'm a snake in her feet. She made me act just like a fool. We caught up and I kissed her, right smack there on the cheek. I held it back out to Linda, who got bit by the rattlesnake teeth. It ain't religion, but if it ain't got snake, I don't want to see no Sunday school, for everybody's got to be saved. It ain't religion. What if it ain't got snakes? How can I be a believer if they never ever took my place? She left me for the Lord above. Now she watches me from up there. I thought that she'd be okay with me, but Jamie came a devil red hair. First time I took Jamie to Sunday school, she got bit snake was looking back at me with little loose faraway eyes. It ain't religion, whatever it ain't, God's snake. How can I be a believer if it never ever tested my faith? It ain't religion, whatever it ain't, God's snake. How can I be a believer if it never ever tested my faith? It teaches about credit. Up in heaven, for heaven's sakes. Now I see their eyes in the faces of every single rattlesnake. 5 had joined them, and it's almighty up above. Now those snakes have fitted and curled this country boy ever did love. It ain't religion, or if it ain't God's snake. No Sunday school where everybody's got to be saved. It ain't religion, what if it ain't God's snake? How can I be a believer if it never ever takes my faith? Me and my brand new wife, Betty Sue, she's second cousin to Elizabeth. How we do things with snakes that we probably shouldn't ought to do. I bit one just a moment ago, and it sure enough bit me back. Now I'm running into that light. I'm not sure that I'm coming back. It ain't religion, whatever it ain't, God's sake. I don't want to see no Sunday school where everybody's got to be saved. It ain't religion, or if it ain't God's sake. How can I be a believer if it never ever tested my faith? Introduce yourselves, please, and tell us how you found out about us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're the Thompsons. My name is Wayne Thompson. This is my wife, Casey.
Hi.
Welcome.
We grew up in Winchester, and the other Thompsons south, and so we got over and started to look into if there's another direction that kind of suits our ideologies a little better.
Yeah.
And so,
And I was
Tracy.
Thank you.
welcome, Wayne and Tracy. Nice to see you. Now I'd like to ask if there are If you have any community announcements, please write them down on a piece of paper and bring them up anytime during the service, and I will read them at the end. Okay? Let's move on, if you don't mind. Next time. Okay, next time. All right, now we're going to move on as I'm saying here. We have a fellowship minister, the Reverend Marcia Mitchener. So Marcia, would you like to speak to us for a few minutes now? Let's welcome Marcia Mitchener.
Hey, good morning. How wonderful to see everybody on this. I know it's
That's right.
it's great to see you. I know sometimes it's hard to get motivated on a gloomy, cold, and rainy day like today. I had trouble getting out of bed myself, so I was running a few minutes late this morning. But I got here, and I was thinking during that song, if the Ingleside Baptist Church could see me now. That's where I grew up and was a regular there. Every time the doors were open, pretty much, I was there, or another member of my family. And I certainly appreciate some of the lessons that I took in during that time, and reject some of the others. So, but I'm really glad that you decided to get up and come and join us here, because I think it's really important that we do the things that help to nurture us and make us feel better, especially on days like today when we have to maybe reach out a little bit more and find ways to give ourselves some good stuff. And I think being here is one of the best things that I do for myself during the week. So I'm really glad that you all came, and I'm excited to have our guest speaker today, Alice Lovelace. I'm very excited about that. I love the music. It makes me feel so good to hear this music. And, but I'm very grateful that I'm here and that you're here with me. So y'all have a great week.
Thank you very much, Marcia. So now that I'm going to ask if there are any, I'm going to reverse something today. So let's first have our joys, sorrows, and milestones, and then have our silent meditation, and then another. Welcome back. We're now going to have our next congregational song, which is going to be Instant Karma.
Bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Should've never happened once, should've never happened again. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Something here needs fixing, I think it's you, my friend. There never was no line in the sand, just some trench dug by your own white hand. When the sun rises and the sun falls again, you dig another with your other hand. You may dig yourself a great big hole where you're gonna plant your giant flagpole. But you alone can launch all around. Say try shit like stand your own ground. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Should've never happened once, should've never happened again. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Something here needs fixing, I think it's you, my friend. down south. Now stand your own ground. This man shoot another man. No one's getting my gun but from my cold dead hand. When another man dies and the other one lies, the one with the gun better praise why. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Should've never happened once, should've never happened again. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Take a break. Something here needs fixing. I think it's you, my friend. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. Should have never happened once, should have never happened again. Bang, bang, boom, boom, there it goes again. And something here needs fixing. I think it's you, my friend.
Recognize them again, though they're going to perform again. Ted Pettis and Andy Weisskopf and Cade Refuge. Now I get to introduce the speaker, who is a longtime arts activist in the Atlanta community. Alice Lovelace is a poet, performance artist, playwright, arts administrator, longtime cultural worker, the mother of artists. We have had her here to speak before. She's a force in the Atlanta arts community. So it gives me very great pleasure now to introduce Alice Lovelace.
But I don't think you know a lot of personal about me, so I'm going to start a little bit personal and then, as I said, what was on my mind, so I'm giving you what's on my mind. So, I was originally born in St. Louis, Missouri. February the 5th, I'll be 75 years old, an age I never thought that I would attain, and here I stand. I come from a family, my mother and father, 13 children. My mother was his second wife, my father had 17 children. I was my mother's 10th child, my father's 13th. Coming from a family that was rooted and centered in a deep work ethic, which my father taught all of us and was the greatest gift he gave us, along with his compassion and his soft heart and his love. I come from a mother who was a keeper of traditions, who would not let a holiday pass without her gathering her family all around us. In a household that some days on Christmas or Easter, you would see 125 of us. Eating and celebrating together across generations. I was raised to believe that there is no place children are not welcome, needed, and adored. I was raised to believe that those who had set the foundation, who had paved a way, who had made those roots for us to grow out of and grow into, and to give new branches, you revered them, you understood them, You learned from them. You did not always agree with them, but you knew you were loved. I come from love. That love was passed on to me in so many different ways through my mother and my father. And wish I could do one for both of them, but I will particularly, whenever my birthday comes around, my mama always comes to my mind. She purchased me in the kitchen when I was 8 years old. I started to do my kitchen duties, which was learning how to feed your family. And I started, my first assignment was birthday cakes. So when everybody had a birthday, any birthday coming up, that was my assignment, was to cook the birthday cake. So I think of my mother on my birthday. Praise song for my mother. For Claudia Mays, Stanford Lovelace of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and St. Louis on the Missouri side, passed this life January 1st, 1969. Let us give thanks for her being. Birthed a baker's dozen, but did not sacrifice innocent eyes. Smoked fires from across the room, in stove or under me sighs, lullabies, coded epitaphs to mud mothers, scenarios to capture the attention of fretful children. Claudia, an only child, fused to this earth by the hands of her children, great and grand in the love of William. Claudia, ancient, arrogant one, escaped the South, abandoned the African rituals of her father, disinherited the black initiations of her mother, elected to cast humanity in her image, to forge life according to her terms, and let us give praise. We store ways in the secret place of her womb. Let us praise her, communal mother of the Lovelace clan. Oh, Claudia, your daughters never witnessed you stumble, never heard you recant. In our recollection, woman and strength are synonymous. Maize, yam, palm wine, lining your rites of passage. Release us, Claudia, as we release you from the wombs of this earth. Rest content. You always fed those seeking love, shelter, absolution. You always had on hand enough cornmeal, rice, beans to quiet thin bellies of your own and others. Oh, Arkansas armed you with iron wheel, still pulse quicksilver tongue. St. Louis raped your convictions. Children taught you compromise. The 10th, I barely made it over before your leave. Before your leave, baptized in fire, I grew at times in spite of you, wounded no less than my sisters, abiding our periods of blood, our periods of laughter. But Claudia, where did you bury the calcified dreams, the aborted joy? Release us, Claudia, as we release you from the wounds of this earth. Rejoice while your daughters chant click songs, dance the fertile dance, plow the fields of your nation in waiting, preparing for your return. Praise song for my mother. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long, long ways from home. A long, long ways from home. Praise song for my mother. Worker back when black men didn't get good factory jobs. He was a union man, and he taught me the value of the union, and he endowed me with this incredible sense of the world. Being so many children in our household, I craved time one-on-one with my father. So at a very young age, 7, 8 years old, I took up the habit of whenever I would get home from school, or if it was Sunday, it didn't matter if it was the weekend, when my father sat down to watch the news, all the other children left the house, and I would come in and sit on the floor in front of him. And together, my father showed me the world. He opened me up and he showed me more beyond my doorstep. He showed me all the things that were going on around the world. And I sat there and watched that set and I saw the world flash back, and I watched Korea and I watched Dwight Eisenhower, and I understood how these things began to connect. And we never talked. We just sat and watched and listened, and I watched Birmingham and I watched Selma, and I watched the world explode with Vietnam, and I saw these connections between countries that many of my peers didn't even know the names of. He opened my eyes, he showed me a world, and I have never forgot that I don't belong to one place or to one people, but I belong to whatever I choose to be a part of. And it can be anywhere I choose to be, it can be any struggle I choose to join, and it can be anywhere my heart rests. And I apologize, no time for that, because that is what it means to own yourself and to set and plot a course for yourself in the world. And there's a lot of things in the world that keep us from moving forward, but it shouldn't be our own hearts and our own mind and our own courage and our own passion. So, share what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking I'm so fucking fed. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm so fed up with gossip pretending to be news. That's one of the things I am most fed up with. I'm fed up with this idea that you can control a people by controlling their access to health care and to care for themselves in the way that they decide they need. Body autonomy. I'm burning books, of closing libraries and threatening to put librarians in jail, of telling women that their bodies don't belong to them, of telling people that there are places they don't belong, that they don't have a right to cross, of saying you cannot quiet our voices because we demand free speech, but you don't get it unless you agree with our free speech. That if you don't believe in our God, then you don't have a God. That if you don't look like we look, if your skin is not alabaster, then you are out of place with the world. We are in a place that is a dangerous place. But the thing that comes with age, and me being 75, I know many of you have more on me, you know, we've been here before. This is not new. This is a continuum. It is a constant struggle. Being human, a constant struggle. Being responsible, a constant struggle. I worry most for these generations coming up. And I worry because there is a divide unlike any I've seen before. Now, we all remember those days when we used to say, don't trust anyone over 30. But we didn't really mean like just totally dismiss them and throw them away. We kind of, I think, still have that bond to our grandparents. Some of us great-grandparents. We still have that bond somewhere. But today, I worry about the young people because those bonds are so severe. This thing, and all of those things that connect to it. Technology is not bad. I started working in computers in 1966 when a computer was the size of a small bedroom and did one thing. I'm not afraid of technology. I'm afraid of those people with a mindset behind technology who understand how easy it is to influence, control, and direct the lives of people when they become dependent on this thing. And they stop understanding that intelligence is something that one grows. You don't read a headline or an article and suddenly know. That education is the beginning of a journey of scholarship, not the end product. Where knowing more actually helps you to understand more of what you think you know and understand. And get closer to something that we all like to search for. We call it truth, knowing that we can never touch truth. But knowing that we can get closer and closer as we become and grow more and more into ourselves and understand ourselves, the world, the connections that hold us all together. The fact that you can't cut down that tree because you do hurt me. That every time you cut down a tree, every time you poison an ocean, every time you knock down a mountain, that you wound us, those of us who depend on this earth for our very livelihood. And just because we moved into these places where our young people would like to believe that milk comes from a grocery store, it's not true. Now, what I'm going to say sounds crazy, but this is what I've been thinking. These are the things that the pandemic allowed. It really was kind of good on one level, but it really kind of allowed you too much time to think. And, but what I truly think, we have so much, our generation, to give. We have so much to contribute. The one thing we know about is that it is better to organize for what you want as opposed to against what you don't like. Much more powerful to organize for what you want, but nobody seems to know what they want right now. But that is one of the things that we are going to have to learn to do. So instead of reading, I think about particularly these books in the schools. What can we do? Well, one, we can actually strengthen libraries by becoming members of library boards. Anybody can recommend books to the library to buy. While I abhor this attack on books and libraries, I also know that libraries are not living up to the full potential of full representation. And there's lots of room for positive things there to get pressed, because there are people pressing against all of these other crazy gossip ideas out here. I know that public schools are sacred. Yes. They have to be held in a position, in a place. Anybody who commits to educate all of its children, this is a huge, huge human rights issue. Yes. Children should own their education, because the job of a child is to move beyond its parent, to move out into the world and to become themselves. We are merely the helpers who join them on that journey to become themselves. It is not our job to define their sexuality. It is not our job to define their intellectualism, what they want to learn and why they want to learn it. It is not our job to keep them pure. So that brings me to this other thing I've been thinking about. Is that there's a need for some real serious parenting classes out here. I'm serious. I mean, really. You have generations of young people who don't know what it means to sit in a kitchen and cook from scratch the meal that will nourish your family, and don't know how powerful it is for a family to all put their hands in and build a meal together and then feed each other. And the other things that bind us, it is an intentional act. And as my husband Dickie and I used to always say, we don't raise children, we raise adults. We take care of children. And it's a hard job to raise an adult. But we were up to the task, and thank God we did it. And I look at my children, I look at my grandchildren, and now my great-grandchildren, and I am sure now than ever, we need parenting classes. There are young people out here struggling like forever. They don't understand what it means to be a parent. They understand what it means to reproduce, but they don't understand what it means to be a parent. And they don't know what it means to raise an adult. And I am not complaining about our young generation. I love young people. Young people were a part of my life for almost 40 years, teaching all over this country. Every country that I visited, the first people I would go and sit and spend time with was children in schools. Children are incredibly important to me in my world. But there are disconnects here that can't be ignored, that are dangerous for future generations, that could truly hold us back from moving forward with a just, free world. The quest for money, the love of money. The book does not say money is a root of evil, it says the love of it is. When you will do anything, say anything, lie some more, because there's some money at the end of that. That is what I fear. So now I'm going to shut up and I'm going to share a couple of poems that have kind of given me up. I think I'm probably at the end of my time almost anyway. So, you know, one thing I also try to tell my children, I try to understand young people who come up around us that you can give children foundations, you can give them all of those things that you want them to have in life. When our kids were coming up, we had just a few essential rules. We knew we could not keep them from the world. The world belonged to them. It was their generation. They had a right to be with their generation, the right to grow into their generation and to be in their time. So we said, when you leave this house, we have no control. We understand that's your freedom. But when you enter those doors, this is our place where we build family. You listen to our music. You eat what we put on the table. We all cook and we all share and we all put on the table together. When we sit down to eat a meal together, we talk. And we talk about things that are relevant, that have meaning. So every child had a day when the meal, you sit down, was the topic of discussion. It had to come from national, local, or international news. No sports, no entertainment. We don't care what's happening in the movies, and we do not care what basketball players do. That was the same philosophy that I carried into my teaching. When I taught for all those years, I would ask children sometimes for the first time anyone ever asked them, what do you think? They were not allowed to bring the thoughts and the words of their mother or father into that classroom. They could not bring anything from entertainment, from television, radio, from movies. They had to only be able to understand their own experience in the world. Powerful. And even after you do all of that, as we grow older, we get into those situations where, you know, in the back of our minds we know better, but hey, we're young, and we stumble and we make big mistakes. But if we're lucky, we survive and we learn. This is called cooking. The stove on which I learned to cook ruled the house in form and function, designed to rest on majestic claws, her body iron, most common element of earth, her skin, her very cells, atomic number 26, bonded earth to star when supernovas exploded, forged in the belly of my capitalist state of being. The fire inside that stove controlled the surface heat. The cook controlled the temperature by the opening and closing of the flue, by the amount of wood you fed her. Reach in, strike a match to kindling, drag it about for an even burn. My mother taught me this. Making fires was a daily process. The stove where I learned to cook provided surface enough to cook and serve families and ships. That summer we were 27 strong. I was 8, as afraid of my mother as that stove. Surrendered to her commands. Learned to use the palm of my hand as a measuring cup. Mastered cakes, then cobblers and fried pies. Took pride in my hands. I did battle with hard-held, handheld weapons that beat, blend, stir, pound, pick, smothered chicken and roasted hen, honey-made dumplings and liver smothered in gravy with blackened onions. All at my mother's side, I learned the hard way to listen for instruction in the sizzle, pop, steam that spoke the moment to test, rotate, turn, remove. Before food critics dazzled us with high-def videos, my worth was judged by my ability to satisfy the appetites of others. This is your work, my mother instructed me. Cooking is a woman's work. Drizzle, drench, a pinch, a dab, a woman's touch. I married while still in my teens to a man who was raised to believe that mantra true. Expected my role to be footstool, punching bag, sabotage the joy I found in feeding others. The food I cooked, corned beef and cabbage, sauerkraut, bratwurst, heavy-handed meals for a man who smothered me. I craved liberation, an outlet from the daily threat of fire. At times, the meals I cooked came laced with poison, maybe sprinkled with ground glass, but always disposed of out of guilt by a child bride who came to understand how wicked, how complex this world we weave, born of love, a bitter seed. I took myself to task, devised a recipe, grew out of love and freed myself, taught my sons to cook and clean, grocery shop and launder clothes, taught them what the world proclaimed woman's work was a game of abuse and control, raised men to understand women are not a problem to be solved and have no obligation to serve, taught them to measure, sift, knead, then bake till brown. This is how we reinvent the world. This is woman's work. A drizzle, a drench, a pinch, a dab, a woman's touch. Yeah, my daughters used to get kind of pissed because they had to take out the garbage and but everybody learned everything, but it's like, yeah, but you know, you gotta take care of yourself. So some poems out of the pandemic. I have no idea what these mean. I just found them. I was complaining to someone I hadn't been able to write. I haven't been able to write anything. And then I started going through my iPad where I keep a lot of thoughts. And I said, oh, well, maybe I have written something, but I have been reluctant to complain. I have been reluctant to complain, to scribble poems decimating the absurdity, record again what has been overshared, taken bait, pornography, link. We are the world. And in our world somewhere, people starve to death. Someone is raped or beaten for loving the wrong person, reading the wrong book. You can get killed. Education is bad, and my body does not belong to me. I am the world. Like global warming is real, so are global connections. I keep my tongue stilled. My pen runs empty. This white page is torture. What do I have to gain by denying my blessings? I am blessed not to live in a country where no one starves in their mother's arms on the street, skin gray and slack, all bone and glassy-eyed. Because in the USA, we are blessed to ignore what we hear, refuse what we don't want to do, say grace over our platter of dollar burgers, and count our blessings. I'm so blessed. Not to live where women are attacked on buses, pulled into the greenery by hordes of men, sometimes in uniforms, violated, considered lucky if they survive. Because in this USA, they feed you first, call it a date. Sometimes there are flowers, even steak, sweet words that later burn, soft hands, now bricks inside my head. No words like rape, just forceful penetration, and I get to keep half the blame. So blessed am I. They say our end is in our beginning. Bread to feed the billionaire's lust, insects under the boot. They preach you can be like us, get off your knees. Money trumps prayers, and sacraments don't save, not the person nor the nation. They say you will ruin the nation, strangle the cash flow, negate the power dynamics. They say your bleeding heart must be sacrificed for the good of all. Good deeds will not save the world, not the person nor the nation. They say being woke is wrong. Naming evil and framing his history hurts the patriotic wing of a proud white nation. Look at the good of your enslavement, our benevolence, the rewards. Being woke won't stay the wagging tongue of history. We say kill history, slay his myths, dismantle scripted readings, rewrite the meaning of destiny. As all in nature, our way is forward. Shed the past. We know change is struggle and struggle pain. The meaning of our sacrifice, our daily labors. We jackhammer your perceived reality, shredding nonsense and lies. The image industry and financiers, industrial foods and water tycoons, corruption, violence, conspiracies. We say we save ourselves to save the world by acting, by being the third eye, all-seeing, by being the leaf and the bone. Whoa. Yeah. So I know I gotta be running out of time. Somebody gonna tell me? No. Oh gosh, yes I have. Okay. Well, I am so honored to be here, and I'm so glad Ted mentioned the social forum, because that is something that I had intended to mention. I found this article that I wrote during the time that we were building up for the social forum, and you know, I often, when I go out to open mics or readings with other younger people, I'll pull out sometimes poems that I wrote 25, 26, 27 years ago. And they will often comment about how it's such a good take on our time these days. And I have to tell them that these days have been some long days. There are things we've been struggling for a long time. We're still on that journey working for them. But I think we know this time, the next time we get them, to hold tighter to them and to hold them more secure. So this article was all about why you should come to the social forum, how it was going to change the world, it's going to be moving, building. And I want to say this, that Atlanta gave you the World Social Forum, the best social forum it has ever had in its history. There has never been a more successful social forum than the one that was held here in Atlanta. And that was because many of you in this room today who contributed to that effort, to countless organizers in Atlanta who put their own organizational business on hold to make that happen. It was one that allowed us, who were all organizers working together, to construct a place where real change did happen. It was no accident that the Democratic Socialists were able to build strong here in Atlanta. I worked with them for 4 months to make sure they had an entire lineup for everything they wanted for a conference, side by side. We worked that scheduling to make that happen. Same thing for the social workers coming out of New York who are organizing for people who work in the house, home workers. Some great organizing, the youth workshops, the youth contingents that came out of there, the extraordinary intergenerational sharing. And my saddest thought has been that could not in any way continue. But that a good foundation and a solid foundation was set here, and we made true the statement that as goes the South, goes the world. But that doesn't always mean down, because it can also mean up. It can also mean in progressive ways, and I do believe that spirit still lives here and rests here. God bless the young people out in the streets. Yesterday, God bless the young man who was killed, defending the environment and standing up at Cop City. God bless them as they move forward to find their place in this world and in this movement for justice and peace. And I'm serious about all of you grandparents, great-grandparents. We need some parenting classes. Pass it on.